So now that I've shown you how to use the pen tool to draw shapes and the Pathfinder panel to draw logos and the pen tool and the layers to draw characters, we also have to talk about typography. Illustrator is a very powerful typography program. In most of your lettering and typography classes, they're going to focus on Illustrator because you can do more creative things in Illustrator with type than you can in the other programs. And to prove that, I've got a big file for you and I to go through. So I will go to File and Open. On my desktop, I will find Illustrator Chapter 8 and the Illustrator Typography file. I'm going to go ahead and open that. And as you can see, if I hold my space bar, every one of these colored rectangles represents a different typography feature that you can do here in Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so the way this file has been laid out is the fact that you have border boxes right there. You have all your instructions. They're all locked, so you don't have to worry about them. And you've got your top layer, which is where you're going to do all your work. Now, if you are on a Mac or a PC, the font you're going to use for most of these is Arial. Okay, these are Arial, this is Arial, this is Arial, because on a Mac, I typically use Helvetica, but on a PC, Helvetica doesn't work. A PC will use Arial. A Mac has Helvetica and Arial. So for this demo, just to avoid any confusion, we're all going to use Arial. Now what I'm going to do is zoom in on this first orange rectangle, and it says type out 4 lines of text here. So we can try out the buttons on the character panel. So before you even go to type, you're going to hit Command T on a Mac or Control and T for type. That will bring up your character panel, along with the paragraph and open type panels, but you want your character panel. Okay, the default setting for your character panel is Myriad Pro at 12 points. We don't want to use Myriad, so if you highlight the name of the font, you can type in ARI. That will find all your fonts starting with ARI, like Arial. Okay, and the other thing you want to check, because your character panel might not look like mine, in the upper right corner, when you first try the character panel, you're going to get this. You're going to get a stripped down version of that character panel. So I'd always recommend, before you start doing type, go to the upper right corner pop-up menu, show the options for the character panel, show all the buttons. Highlight the name of the font, type ARI, and find Arial. I'm going to go with the default setting of 12 points here. Let's just see what happens. And I'm going to click once on my type tool. Then I'm going to come in. Usually type starts from the left. So all I'm going to do is click. I'm not going to click and drag. Just click your mouse and you're going to type in 4 sentences. So I could start with, this is the first line of type. When I hit the period, this cursor is going to be blinking. I'm not done yet. So I hit enter on a PC or return on a Mac. And now I type another line. And this is second. Hit enter or return. This is the third line of type here. Hit enter or return, and this is last. So we have a couple of sentences with different lengths. Okay, when you are done, you go to your black arrow. All you should see is 4 lines of type with an underline underneath each line of type. That underline is called your baseline. Okay, if you see a box around this type, for now, go to View, hide your bounding box. Okay, if you say show, you're going to see a box around your type. We don't want that right now. So go to View, Hide the bounding box. The bounding box is a transformation tool. We're not going to be transforming type by dragging a box. We're going to be transforming type on our character panel. So right here, when you click on the black arrow, every single line, every letter is selected. Here is your font size. Next to every field, you get a little story. So here's a small t and a large t. Your type is getting bigger. That's your font size. So I always tell people, just to make sure you know which field you're on, highlight it. Then you could go to the left and hit the up arrow key right there, or the up arrow button. You hit the down arrow button right there. So I'll go with 18 point. And then next to that, you're going to see another little icon, two A's sitting on top of each other. Each A represents a line of type. So this is leading, the amount of space between lines of type. So again, I can highlight that, hit the up arrow right here, and then I'll just add more and more and more and more and more type, like you would see on, let's say, a wedding invitation. If you hit the down arrow here, you can shrink down the amount of space between lines of type, like the fine print on a contract. So you make it hard to read so nobody reads that stuff. And what you always want to do is look at your font size. If our font is 18, your leading should be a couple of points bigger than that. So I'll set my leading to about 21. Okay, right down below that, this little icon has a V and an A being pushed apart. This is called your tracking. To see this more clearly, instead of hitting the up arrow, because it's going to happen really slowly, you click the pop-up values over here on the right. If I say -100, I have subtracted the amount of space between all my letters, so -100. Now all the letters are almost touching each other. It's very hard to read. The font designer said the spacing should properly be set at a 0. But if your customers or your boss has a hard time reading the type, they might ask you to track out the type. That means add more space between each letter. So that's what tracking does. You usually track out your type with really small type so the human eye can recognize each letter in that sentence or each letter in a word. But the default is 0. Next to that is a field called kerning. Okay, there is a V and an A, just like over here for leading, but now you have a V and A with a line between them. Okay, kerning is the space between only 2 letters. Tracking is the space between all of the letters. Kerning is really fine-tuning the space between just 2 letters. So on my screen, I'm going to zoom in just to show you what kerning does. And I'll zoom in right here. I'll click a couple of times on the word type, hold my space bar and move that out of the way. And now if I take my type tool and click right between the T and the Y, there's a space between them. I can highlight this and start hitting the down arrow and just hold down the down arrow until the Y pushes itself over. So now you can see right here, the T is separated from the Y. That's good tracking. Now I've adjusted that a little bit with kerning. Okay, so kerning you don't use on an entire paragraph. It would be like fine-tuning the space between 2 letters in the name of a magazine or the name of a product. Okay, it's minimal usage. You're hardly ever going to use kerning, but at least you know what it does. To reset it, I just put it all the way back to 0, and now we're right back where we started. So I'm going to take my zoom tool, option click on my Mac or alt click on my PC. Space bar can move that over. And then right below kerning, you have a T with a vertical arrow. That's your vertical adjustment, your vertical scale. So if I click over to the right, I can squish my type down like somebody stepped on it, or I can make it grow like a healthy plant. Okay, the default is 100. Same thing as that, but now you have horizontal scale. So again, I can highlight it, click the pop-up, I can squish it left and right, or I can stretch it out like that, distorting my type, but that's what those two fields will do. And I'll set it back to 100. Right below that, you have a T with a curved arrow. That is your character rotation. I've never found a use for it, but I don't ignore it because I would like to know what it's there for. So I highlight the value, start hitting the up arrow, and now my type will fall backwards like a set of dominoes. Okay, the only reason I would want to do something like that is that I could take my rotate tool right there, come over to the right side, and just click and drag that right side down. So it would almost look like my type is going down a set of stairs. So that's what character rotation would possibly be used for. Not that I've ever done it, but I know how to do it in case I'm ever asked to do it. So I'll go to Edit, Undo, and then I'll highlight this value and hit the down arrow. Just hold it down, and you can see that a negative value right there will push your type forward like they're all tripping over each other. The default is 0. And then the final one right here is called baseline shift. So I'm going to zoom in on one of these words again just to show you what the baseline does. So you'll notice every letter has a line right at the base of the letter. That's your baseline. So it lines up all your letters to form a cohesive sentence. But you can take your type tool, highlight a specific letter, highlight your baseline, and hit the up arrow. So you can make the baseline shift upward. I can skip the letter C, come over to the letter O, highlight the baseline, and hit the down arrow. Skip the letter N, highlight the letter D, highlight the baseline, and hit the up arrow. So I can make all these baselines break apart. So right here, all these are lined up, these are lined up, and now one floats up, one comes down, one comes way down, another floats up, and you could give your text a little more interesting look. Obviously, you wouldn't do baselines on an entire paragraph, but you could use it on a word like second or wavy or earthquake, things like that. I will highlight this area or click in there and set it all back to 0. Okay, let me show you two more examples. Again, on my screen, I'm just going to click outside and type something right up here. So let's say you were doing an ad for Nike and you type in Nike TM for trademark. You can go to your black arrow. We'll make that type a little bigger so it's easier to read right here. But you are trying to promote Nike, not Nike Tim. Okay, so you highlight the TM. You go to your font size and you set it down by hitting the down arrow. Trademarks are very, very small next to the product names. You've seen it. But they always float above. So then you would highlight the baseline shift and hit the up arrow, and you would push that baseline up like that. Now with the black arrow, I can move them both at the same time. TM is still connected to Nike. It's just smaller and has a totally different baseline than the main word. Okay, and I'm going to highlight right there, and we'll delete that. And let's say you're doing a report for your chemistry class. You could type in H2O. Again, I could highlight the 2 because it's not H20. You want the 2 to stand alone. I could highlight the size, hit the down arrow and shrink that too. Highlight the baseline and hit the negative baseline. So now with my black arrow, I would have the chemical compound for water correctly typed out. That is what baseline shifts are all about. Okay, so I'll come back with my black arrow, click on my type. Now that we've explored all these active fields, you have 6 other buttons down here. Okay, so with all your types selected, the first one is all caps. You don't have to retype anything. Okay, if you turn that off, it'll turn off that feature. The second one is small caps. Every letter will be capitalized, but smaller than the first letter of each sentence. And I'll turn that off. Notice how your baseline shift starts right here. If I hit superscript, my baseline should be down here, but notice my type got smaller and it went up, like the TM in Nike. I'll turn that off. The other one is subscript. It'll make your type small and shrink it down, like the 2 in H2O. And I turn that off. You also have the ability to underline your text. Notice how it underlined everything, and I'll turn that off. And you have something called strike through, which I don't know why you would ever want to use that. I've never used it, but at least I know what it does. And I'll turn that off. Now keep in mind, I clicked on my black arrow, so we have the entire block of text selected. You don't necessarily have to do that. If I wanted to emphasize this is the first line of type, I could highlight that one word and I could do an underline on that one word, and I could go to my swatches and change the color of that one word like that. Okay, this is the first line of type. So if you wanted to reset all that back, you just click on it with your black arrow, turn off underlines. Well, first you got to activate it, then turn it off. And then this color fill doesn't know what color to show me. Is the type black or is it red? Illustrator doesn't know what color to put there. So I go back to my swatches and put it all back to black, and we are right back where we started. Okay, what I would suggest, because this is a big file, go to File menu, Save As. Your last name, your first name, typography on your desktop as an Illustrator file. And I'll click OK. So now I've got my version of the file right here. I can click outside, hold my space bar, and drag it over to here. Okay, what I want to do is make sure, in order to type out these symbols, I'm going to set up my character panel first. It's Arial. I'm going to set it to Arial Bold. I want the type to be 18 points. The leading is 21. No tracking, no kerning. It's 100% vertical. It's 100% horizontal. There's no character rotation. But notice I got a weird value on my baseline. So let's reset that back to 0. Okay, these symbols, copyright symbols, trademark symbols, Greek type, letters with accent marks, those are not on your keyboard, but they do come with that font. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm on Arial Bold. And then it says use the glyphs panel from the type menu to recreate these common glyphs below. So I will go to type menu and glyphs. When you first pick the glyphs panel, it will be small like this. You can only see a couple lines here. So what I recommend is when you bring that in, you pull the bottom edge down. So you can see a lot more samples of what there is to choose from. Now, obviously that color covers up my page. So I'm going to take my zoom tool and option click or alt click on a PC. space bar just to push it over a little bit so I can see everything. There we go. And now I take my type tool. I'm going to click not on the left of that C, but coming straight down from that. I'm going to click once. Now my cursor is waiting for me to find the copyright symbol. So I go to my glyphs panel, I search, and there is my copyright symbol. All I have to do now is double click and it will type it for me right there on the page. I can hit the space bar a couple of times to kind of line up underneath the R for registered trademarks. Those are right next to the copyright symbol. Double click. I'll hit the space bar a couple of times to line up underneath the TM for trademarks. Find that other legal copy right there. Double click. If I'm doing a flyer for my sorority or fraternity, you got the omega symbol. So as you search, here's some of the Greek type right there. There's pi, and you keep going down, and there's the omega. Double click. Now you can make your flyers for your groups. Hit the space bar a couple of times. And if you're doing a sign for a sale, you don't want to type a C and then go to your pen tool and draw a line. Right up here, if I go to registered and I go backwards a few, and then we'll come to the next line, there's my cent sign. Double click, and you type out a cent sign, you don't draw one. But the main thing is letters with accent marks or product names or people's names. Okay, like Nunez. I would type in NU, find the N with the accent mark, double click, and then type EZ. Okay? Or, like you see down below, resume. It's not resume. You have to have the accent mark. So I'm going to hit the space bar a couple of times, find my letter with the accent mark, and double click. Okay, when you're done with that line, go to your black arrow, click outside, save your progress. So down below it says type out the 2 words below using proper glyphs. So I'm going to take my type tool again, click right underneath the R for resume, and I'll type RES for right now. Whoops, I don't want to type all capital letters. So let's turn off my caps lock key. RESUM. But that is way too small. Okay, I'm going to go to my black arrow, which automatically selects the word, and I'm going to start hitting the up arrow for the font size. Right about there. Let's line up that R right underneath that R. And I'm going to go with 32 point Arial bold. Now, if I need to continue, I got to make sure I line up that cursor. I'm going to take my type tool, click right next to the letter M. Notice my cursor has a box. That means I'm going to start something new, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to put it right next to the letter M. When I just see the cursor, I click to continue on the end of the line, find my letter E with the accent mark, and double click. Go to my black arrow, click outside, file and save, and now I have the band. I go to my type tool, click underneath the M, and I'll hold down or hit the caps lock key so I get M-O-T. Now I got to find Motorhead. I got to find that O with the double umlaut. There's the capital letters. Double click, and then R-E-H-E-A-D. If somebody has a product name or a band name or a last name and they've got an accent mark, you better put in those accent marks. Okay? File. Save. Now that I'm done with the glyphs panel, I can close it with the X, click outside to deselect, and now hold my space bar for the hand tool. I'm going to push this up and push it up more. And then I'll go to the zoom tool and option click on my Mac or alt click on a PC. Okay, it says highlight and copy the supplied text to the left. So if you take your type tool, if you are outside, you will see a box. You do not want to see that box because all that's going to do is click and drag an empty text frame and wait for you to type like that inside the text frame. So I go to my black arrow, hit delete or backspace on a PC. And then again, when you want to highlight type, you're waiting for that box to disappear. So when you are close enough, right there, you will see your cursor, not the box. Once you see just the cursor, you can click and drag and highlight. I will go to edit and I will copy all that type. I go to my black arrow, click outside to deselect the type, and now it says, then click and drag a rectangular text box with your type tool and paste the text back into it. I'll take my type tool, put the black arrow right there in the corner, click and drag my own text frame. Now the cursor is blinking, so I go to edit and paste. Put all the type back in there. I go to my black arrow, that selects all the type in here. And I want that type to be a little bit bigger. So instead of 11 point, I'm going to hit the up arrow and go 12 point right there. Notice when I click outside, all my type rests on the left edge. Okay. All the type on the right is what they call right ragged. They're all different lengths. So when I click on this with the black arrow, everything is selected, and you'll notice next to your character panel is your paragraph, your alignment. All type lines up on the left because we read from left to right. You could also center all your type. So you can see how this line, which was shorter, got bumped in from the left and right. You can push all your type to the right side, and then you'd have left ragged type. Or what a lot of books or newspapers will do is they don't want people to see all these different lengths, so they create what is called justified. It adds optical amounts in between certain words where it needs it to optically push every line all the way across the box, except the last line. So I wouldn't go any further than this. People read left to right, so the last line will start from the left and just end. Okay, you could center that last line, you could push it to the right, or the worst thing is click this one, because now it has to add a whole bunch of space, and that will never look good. So if you're going to justify your type, I would recommend the fourth one over. That's it. Okay, the other thing you could do with type, which is actually pretty cool, is you can take this text frame. Let's delete this with my black arrow. I'll hit delete. I'm going to click on this box, hold my Option key on a Mac or Alt key on a PC, and I'll drag a copy. I let go of the mouse first. Okay, what you can do when you put type in a box like this, you can go to your white arrow, your editing tool. You click outside, then you hover right over that upper left corner. You'll see a little box. There's your little radar. There's your anchor point. And I can pull that box apart and the type will flow to that new shape. Okay, so text can get pretty interesting. I could drag this one, pinch it down further, and now my type kind of flows in these longer and longer and longer sentences. But just be aware that type can do that if it's justified and your editing tool is used to pull apart the points. I will go to File, save my progress. As always, spacebar for the hand tool, and I'm going to push this over. Okay, again, I'm going to click on character for now. Again, it says highlight and copy the supplied text to the right. So here's another way you can highlight a whole block. You can either take your type tool, move it slowly until the box disappears, then you can highlight everything, but you got to be really careful there. Or you put it right in the middle of the paragraph. Click, and then on a Mac, Command A for all. On a PC, I would hit Control and A for all. I'll go to Edit, and I will copy all that type. I click outside with my black arrow. It says, then click on the yellow circle below with the black arrow. So I'll click that. Then switch to the Area Type tool. If you go to your type tool here, press and hold. You have normal type, also called point type. And now I go to the area type. Okay, it says, then click once on the top anchor point on the circle. You can't click here, so if I click, I'm going to get an error message. I got to be right on the top point. Click, edit, paste. When I go to my black arrow, I wanted this to be in the yellow circle, but notice my yellow circle is now turned into an empty container, just like this box is an empty container. So as soon as you go to put type inside of a shape, inside of an area, Illustrator says, hey, he must want to read, or they must want to read type. Let's get the color out of the way. It's like, no, the color yellow is fine. But now it's disappeared. So here's what you have to keep in mind. If you click with your black arrow, you are actually selecting the type inside the circle. So I could not go over to my swatches and click yellow. All the type would turn yellow. I don't want that. Okay, so I'll make it black again. If you click outside and then you take your white arrow, you go right out here, and when you hover over the edge of the circle right there, even though I'm not on type, you will see a little box, a little anchor next to your cursor. Okay, so you back it off, and then you approach right there where I get it, there. I click, I'm right on the edge of that circle, and the circle will turn yellow. Your white arrow is for the shape. Your black arrow is for the type. Okay, so notice when I click with my black arrow, it's back to black. If I click outside, go to my white arrow, click right on the edge, it's now back to yellow. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to click on the stroke, come over to my swatches again and make that black. And then I'm going to go to my stroke panel. Right down here is a series of horizontal lines. That's the icon for the stroke panel. If you can't see that, go to the double arrowheads and just expand all the panels. You'll find stroke right there. I'm going to set the weight of that stroke from a thin 1-point stroke up to 6. And now when I take my black arrow, click, because I want to deal with the type, let's zoom in and take a look at what that outline did to our type. It starts to carve into the circle, so it's running into all the type right along the edge. Is that an N or an H? His or this? I can't see the type because the stroke is starting to come in and cover it up. So the really cool thing about area type is when you click with your black arrow, and I'll zoom out there a little bit so you can see this. Click with your black arrow and then go to Type menu, Area Type options. What can I do with the type that's inside the circle? You make sure your preview is turned on. And right up here is inset spacing. Push it in from the edge. Up arrow once. Even once fixed it. But I could go 2. And now I've got this little invisible boundary. Keeping it, pushing it away. Keeping it away from that black outline. I'll click OK. Doesn't matter if you can read everything. I don't care about that. But the other thing I would recommend is if you're going to put type inside of an area, make every line go all the way across. Otherwise, it's not conforming to that area very well. So on your paragraph panel, next to your character panel, I would hit the 4th one. And now every line will go all the way across, giving it more of a rounded appearance. I can take my zoom tool, Option or Alt click to zoom back out like that. Take my black arrow, click outside, and go to File, Save. Save your progress. Then I'll take my zoom tool and click once to zoom back in. And now it says select the curved path with the black arrow. So I'll click right there. Then again, switch to the Type on a Path tool. So I go to my Type tool, press and hold, and the third one is typing along lines. Type on a path. Remember to set the paragraph panel alignment to left align because type is going to go from left and go across this path. So I want to set my paragraph panel back right there. Now I take my cursor and you'll notice you have a vertical I-beam and a squiggly line representing kind of the squiggly line we selected. Right where those two lines crisscross, put it right on the line, click, and now you could say, now this is type along a path, as you can see. When you're done, you go to your black arrow. Okay, and here's what's going to happen. First, always draw your path longer than what you need because the type has to have a surface to sit on. That's very important. Then when you click with your black arrow, you're going to notice 3 lines. One right at the beginning of your type, another one at the end of the path, and halfway in between is this line. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And then right about here, I'm going to go to View, Outline. It'll be a lot easier to see those lines. Okay, this line right at the beginning of your type has a box on it. That is called a text link. You do not want to hit that box. Okay, take the tip of your arrow, put it right at the top of that line, and push to the right. Like a snake crawling along the ground right there. So I can push my type somewhere else along this line. There's the beginning, the end, and the middle. If you push it past the end, that's like a bunch of sheep just running off a cliff. So if I push further, it starts jumping off the end of the cliff, and then you can't read your whole sentence. So that's why you want these lines to be longer than what your words are going to be. Right at the top, I'll pull that back toward the middle. I can hold my space bar to move it over. And then again, you have one line at the beginning, one line at the end, and this line in the middle, you can pull it down. And now you're on the underside, like or whatever they call that, and Stranger Things. Okay? Now you're on the underside of the world. Take the middle line, pull it back up, and now you're back in our reality. Okay, so I will go to View menu, Preview. When you click outside, the line won't show up. You just have some nice free-form text right there. File menu, Save, Space bar for your hand tool, and I'll push this up and up. On my keyboard, on a Mac, I'll hold Command and hit minus to zoom out. On a PC, I would hold Control key and hit minus to zoom out. And it says right up here, select the black text on the bottom and convert it to outlines. Turn it into a drawing. Nobody has a font with an A that looks like a snake, so we are going to customize our type. When I click on it with the black arrow, I have one long continuous baseline. This is fonts on my computer, fonts on your computer. Okay, if you don't have times, you could set it to Times New Roman if you're on a PC. Okay, they're pretty darn similar, but times are Times New Roman. And what I want to do is be able to tear apart the A so I can customize a tail on it. So all I have to do when I click on the type is go to Type menu, Create Outlines. Now you're going to see a bunch of anchor points as if you drew that with the pen tool. Okay, what Illustrator also does is it knows that was a typed word, so it wants to keep your letters together. It makes a group. If I click outside, then try to click just on the A, it's still going to select the whole word. So anytime you go to type and you create outlines, then go to Object menu and ungroup your letters so you can treat each one separately. I'm going to click outside. Now you can see I can select just the letter A. And we want to kind of amputate the foot off of that. So the best way to do this is go to View menu, Outline. Look at it as an outline drawing. I'm going to click outside, and to edit, it's your white arrow. I'm going to put that white arrow right down here underneath this gap. And I'm going to click and drag a little box just over the foot of that A right there. Okay, don't hit the letter K, right there. I'm going to hit delete or backspace on my PC so I amputate the foot. Now I go back to my pen tool as if this is an unfinished drawing. So I'll just start right there on that anchor point, right where the line comes down and ends. I'm going to click and drag to continue it going down. Then when I let go, I'm going to turn and come over here. Click and drag up. Then when I let go, I'm going to come over here. Click and drag down. Now that tail has a corner. Corners, you hold Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC. Now I can go up the opposite direction. Let go of my mouse and the Option or Alt key, and I'm going to do a parallel point right here. That comes back down to the right or down to the left. There we go. And then when I let go, come all the way back up to that end point right there. That's not a corner, so I'm not going to touch my Option or Alt key. I'm going to click and drag up, bend up, bend up, until my tail creates a nice extension that gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinnest, and then thicker and thicker and thicker back up. My black arrow can deselect, view, preview to show me all my colors. And that's all I wanted. Show me you know how to convert type to a drawing and then alter that drawing. Great way to make custom logos, especially if they're based on type. I will go to File, save my progress as I always do, space bar for the hand, and I'm going to push this up and push it up a little more. Right there. Okay, now it says, use the blue shapes as envelopes. Envelopes are containers. Use them to distort the text inside of them. Okay, so in order to do that, select all the blue shapes only and choose Object menu, Arrange, Bring to Front. They have to be on the top of the stacking order. So I'll start right over here. click and drag and just hit those 5 shapes right there. No type is selected, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Object menu, arrange, bring to front. And it's not going to look like you did anything because there's nothing in front or behind them, but just to test this, I click outside, take the word November, and just kind of move it over like that. You can see that it is now underneath the blue. That's what we need. I'm going to pull the word November back out. It says to make an envelope, use your black arrow tool and then select one blue shape and then shift click the word that you want to put into it. So I click on blue, shift click November, and I go to Object menu, Envelope Distort, Make with Top Object. There we go. The type kind of blows up like a balloon and inflates to fill the boundaries of that shape. I'm going to click on this blue, shift click 17th, and do it again. Object, Envelope, Make with Top Object. And I'm going to keep going. Click on this shape, shift click Jimmy, Object, Envelope, Make with Top Object. Click on this blue shape, shift click Hendrix, Object, Envelope, Make with Top Object. Click on this blue shape, shift click Live, Object, Envelope, Make with Top Object. All right, and now you can see we got a problem. Okay, the word Jimmy is getting all bent right here. The Y is getting bent. Hendrix looks terrible right there. But here's what you have to remember. Okay, this is called a visual effect. If I go to View menu and look at it in X-ray vision or outlines, there's no type there. So how can I fix the H in Hendrix when there is no H? I go to View, turn on my preview. You fix everything like we have always done with your white arrow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is zoom in just a little bit more there, and I go to my white arrow. Okay, if I hover out here and I just start to approach the H right there, I can see a little corner. I'm going to click on that. And what Illustrator will do, unfortunately, what Illustrator will do when you are using envelopes is it will ignore your corner. I drew that corner, but Illustrator said, I don't think that's good. I want this to be your corner. I don't know why it does it years or decades later, but it keeps doing it. Okay, so you got to be aware of the glitches in the program. So all I have to do to fix that, because see, my letter H is going up and sucked up to this point. That's the point that Illustrator wants, but that's the point that's ruining my file. So I have to go back to my original corner, kind of remember this area. I'm going to pull it down and out of the way. Now I take Illustrator's new corner, push it back where the original was. Let's kind of bump that line up, give it a little more curve right there. Now I come back to my original corner and hit backspace or delete. I clean it up. Notice how the H is still getting bent. So again, I click outside with my white arrow, hover right over the edge until that little box shows up. That means I'm right on the edge. Okay, and I want to click so I can see the direction line. So if I click too far, you're just going to see the outline. Okay, I want to click right on that edge so I see those direction lines. And now when I pull that back down, I will straighten out my letters. Look what happened over here. I drew a corner there. Illustrator said, I want this to be your corner. Did the same stupid thing. So I take my original corner, tear it away, take Illustrator's new corner and put it in place. Take my original corner and delete it. Delete on a Mac or backspace on your PC. Now I click right there. I take this tiny little direction line and I lift it up. And that will lift up the letters. I have the same thing right here with the Y. I can click outside, hover over the edge right there. I get that little black square so I can click. I'm on the edge. And Illustrator did it to me again. I drew a corner there. Illustrator made its own corner. I hate that. But I know how to fix it now. So I take this original corner, which I thought was good, and I drag it out of the way. Take this new corner that Illustrator wants, put it in place. I can maybe move this down, give it a little more curve there. Now I take my original corner, hit backspace on a PC or delete on my Mac. And notice I get a little bit of a curve right here. So again, I click outside, come right over here and right there. When I see that black square, it means I'm right on the edge. That's because this is pulling out when it should stop in the corner and go up. And check that out. November 17th, Jimi Hendrix Live. It's easy to read. Okay, what I want to do though is take my zoom tool, Option or Alt click, and I want to change the color of this type to red. It has this kind of heart shaped. Real cool, real peace loving from the 60s, you know? Love. So I want to take my black arrow, select everything, and go to my fill. This is where Illustrator can get very crazy. How is this type orange when the fill says it's gray? You have to remember, this is a visual effect. If I go to View and view it in X-ray vision or outlines, there is no type. Gray means nothing. So how can I turn nothing into red type? View menu, Preview. If I click on the fill right here and I click on red over here, nothing will happen. It won't turn red or yellow or green or blue or brown. It won't change color. Okay, the last thing on earth you want to do when your customer says, can you change the type to red? Last thing on earth you want to do is say no. Because then they're going to look at you like, then what am I paying you for? I'm paying you because I don't know how to do it. I'm paying you because you're the expert. Now you're saying you're not the expert either? You don't want to say no to your boss or to your customer or no to your customer in front of your boss. We got to turn this red. But Illustrator's saying there is no type. So what I do is stop and think for a minute. What am I looking at here? I'm looking at envelopes. So I backtrack. Object menu, envelope, and at the bottom of that list it says edit the contents. It's like mailing a letter. You put your letter, the contents, into the envelope. The contents of our containers are a type. So when I click edit contents, there's my little baselines. If I go to view menu, outline again, it never distorted my original fonts. It's a visual effect. That's what you got to keep in mind. But at least I got my type selected. So now I go to view menu again, preview the effect, click on my fill, and now fill them red. When I'm done, I want to go back to those shapes. Object menu, envelope distort again, edit my envelopes. There's my shapes. I'll click outside, go to File, and Save. Awesome. As always, you hold your space bar, push this up. And we'll move these out of the way. I don't need my character panel anymore, so let's get that out of the way. And I'm going to click right here on the word shred. Okay, I can see it's got a baseline running right across the bottom. So this is fonts that it's reading off your computer. And I want to turn that into a drawing. I want to convert the word into outlines and ungroup each of the letters. Then I want to take the knife tool and slice through the word 3 times. I literally want the word shred to look like it is shredded. So I'm going to click on it with my black arrow, go to Type menu, Create Outlines, turn it into a drawing, and drawings are grouped. So Object menu, Ungroup. I click outside, and I'm going to zoom in once so I can see that a little more clearly. And right up here is your eraser. But if you press and hold, you also have a knife tool. So I'll select that. It's like a little saw. Okay, right across the center of the word, way out here. I'm going to click and drag like an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to slice right through the center of the word all the way across. Now I have an upper half and a lower half. I'm going to cut the upper half again by starting right over here, slice right through the middle of the whole upper half, and then I'll start over here and slice through the middle of the lower half. With my black arrow, I'm just going to start way down here underneath the green box. I'm going to click and drag over the bottom 3 rows, like right across here. Get that little piece of the S right there. So now the top row is not selected. It's going to stay where it's at. The bottom 3 rows are selected, so I hit my arrow key on my keyboard 2 or 3 times just to kind of nudge it over. Now I take my black arrow again, click and drag up, and only go through the bottom 2 rows. So now the upper half is staying where it's at. I'll hit my left arrow key a couple of times. I do it one more time, selecting just the bottom row right there. And I hit my right arrow key a couple of times. So we can literally shred text. Awesome. That could be any font too. But I like that look. File and save. Now, we're going to take that one step further. I'm going to hold my space bar and drag this over. And I want to leave the word Nielsen where it's at. I want to leave pool supplies or supplies where it's at. So I'm going to click on the word pool. And I'm going to turn that into a drawing. Type menu, create outlines. Object menu, ungroup. Before I start doing anything, I'm going to click and drag to the right. And after I start to drag, I hold my shift key to go straight across and my option key or alt key. And I let go of the mouse first. We want to copy over here. Okay, this is going to be an outline in a minute. So all I'm going to do is click this little curved arrow. Instead of a white fill, I want to flip that to a white outline. So I click that little curved arrow. Cool. There we go. Now I'll come back over here to the original word and I'll use my knife tool again. I want to put a few little ripples of water in the word pool. So I'm going to start right here and just click and drag a little wavy line like that. Nothing crazy. Just like that. And then I'll do it again down here. Maybe go down and up. A few little waves right there, ripples. There we go. Okay, with my black arrow, I'm going to start right over here. And I'm going to click and drag over the upper half of the word pool. All the sky. Okay, just like we did with the sailboat scene. On your swatches panel, in the lower left corner are swatch libraries. I go down to gradients and sky gradients. I'm going to click on this sky 24, this sunset. Okay, but that doesn't go in the proper direction. So I'm going to click once on my gradient tool. Come right up to the top of the O. Hold shift, which allows me to drag straight down to there. I get a nice little sunset. With my black arrow, I have the whole upper half selected. So what I'm going to do out here is hold my shift key and drag over the whole word all the way across the bottom. That simultaneously turns off the top, because I'm done, and reselects the water. Okay, right here on your same sky gradient, you have sky number 3. I'm going to click that. And unfortunately, my water is going left and right. I want it to go up and down. So all you have to do now is go to your gradient tool, or sorry, your gradient panel right here. Next to stroke is gradient. Right here, instead of my gradient going left to right, I'm going to rotate it -90 degrees. Now I get a highlight on the water and it goes down to dark, and then another highlight on the water. So when I click outside, got nice little water ripples going across the word pool. I'm going to hold my space bar and move this over a little bit. Select this outline. And now all I have to do is go to Object menu, arrange, and bring the outline to the front. Now I click and drag. After I start to drag, I hold Shift so it goes straight back over the top. I'll line up the corner right there on the letter P. Let go of my mouse first, then the keyboard. And that's a little too thin, so right up here, I'll make my stroke 2 points. And there we go. Nielsen Pool Supplies. Awesome. Ready for business. File menu. Save it. Don't want to lose that. Okay, I'll close up these gradients. Hold my space bar and push this up. And on my keyboard, on my Mac, I'm going to hold Command and hit minus to zoom out. On my PC, I would hold the Control key and hit minus to zoom out. And now it says, in this area, I would like you to use the Appearance panel to trick Illustrator into accepting gradients. Okay, if I click on this with my black arrow, I've got a baseline. For some weird reason, Adobe Illustrator, when I click on the fill, Adobe Illustrator's type can accept fills, it can accept patterns, but when you try to fill it with a gradient, it just goes black. Okay? So that's not going to work. I'll set it back to white. In order to do this, what most people do, the biggest mistake, is they go to type and they create outlines. Don't have it be type. Turn it into a drawing. Sure, then I can click a gradient. Then I can take my gradient tool, drag from top to bottom. And when I click outside, yes, I can turn that into a gradient. But the problem is, if I show this to my boss or my customer and they don't like the font, that's not a font anymore. That's a drawing of the font. Or if I decide and I see that I misspelled a word, I can't correct the spelling of a drawing. I can only correct the spelling of type. Once you create outlines, this is not type. Okay, so you don't want to back yourself into a corner. So I will go to Edit, Undo, still a drawing, Edit, Undo, Edit, Undo. Now it's type again. But Illustrator won't let me use gradients. So here's how you get around it. First thing you do is try a gradient. Click on your type, click on your fill, and I'm going to go right over here to swatches again. Bottom left corner are swatch libraries, down to gradients and spectrums. I'm going to click this bright spectrum. Click. The type just goes black. But at least I have that spectrum on my swatches panel. So now I don't need this one anymore. Here's how you get around that. You're going to click on the fill and hit your question mark key. This is now invisible type. I can still see the baseline. I can still click a color. The type is still there. But I want to click on the fill and hit the question mark key. Then you jump down here to your appearance panel. And I'm going to tear that out so you can see it. Okay, I'm going to pull this edge down a little bit. And all you have to do to trick Illustrator is you click the pop-up on the upper right of your appearance panel. Add a new fill. If you do it from the appearance panel and you add a new fill there, that can accept gradients. Okay, I can go to my gradient panel right down here, rotate the gradient 90 degrees, and the beauty of this is if my customer doesn't like the type, I can still change it. It's still that baseline. So I can hit Command T on my Mac. That'd be Control and T for your character panel on your PC. And now instead of impact, I could go with any font and it will keep doing it, but keep staying with the gradient as well. So I got some of these kind of cool fonts here. But you can see how it can constantly update and you won't lose your fonts. So I'll just scroll back up and click outside. That'll go back. File menu, save. Spacebar for the hand. And now here's another feature. Let me close this character panel. In this area, you will use the appearance panel to fill the type with a spectrum gradient one more time. Then you will use the correct warp to make a rainbow over the pot of gold. So I'm going to click here. It has a baseline. I cannot use a gradient. So I click on the fill. Hit the question mark key. On my appearance panel pop-up, add a new fill. That fill will be that spectrum gradient again. Okay, right down here on my gradient panel, I want to rotate that 90 degrees. That's not quite making a rainbow. Okay, so here's what else I want to do. I'm going to click on stroke because it's getting a little hard to read. And I will make a black stroke around my type. Okay, here's two things you want to watch out for. The appearance panel will put your stroke on top of your fill. So if you highlight the thickness and you keep hitting the up arrow, like that, it's just going to be so thick it covers up your type because it's sitting above the fill. And the other thing is you get these sharp little points. Okay, so here's 2 rules. On your appearance panel, you go right over here and you pull the stroke down, just like layers. Pull it under the fill. The fill should not be covered. Okay, but I get these weird sharp corners, and that happens with letters with sharp corners. So what you always want to remember is if you're going to put bold outlines around type, go to your stroke panel up here. Always click the 2 middle buttons, and you will have a nice, clean look to your type. Okay, again, the problem is we need it to be a rainbow. This is not a rainbow. So you'll notice if you stay on the stroke and you go to Effect, Warp, and Arc, it's only going to arc the outline, but it leaves the original type there. It's pulling my artwork apart, which obviously I don't want, so I'll click Cancel. What you have to keep in mind about this appearance panel is I close up these triangles. If I'm on the stroke, just like a layer, it will only affect the stroke. If I'm on the fill, it will only bend the fill. But if I want to bend this and this, I click right up here on the title bar, right there. Clicking up here is like selecting this and this. So I'll click on that title bar. Now the problem is if I go to Effect menu, Warp, and Arc, I don't get the rainbow. How can I have just blue in the corner, no blue up here, and then a little blue in the corner? That's not bending the gradient. So I have to cancel. What you need to know about Illustrator is that there are 2 warp features. Effect menu and warp will not work on your gradients. Okay, the other warp feature is object menu, envelope. What you want to do is go to your envelope options and tell Illustrator what you want to bend. I want to distort or bend my gradients. I want to distort or bend patterns in the future. I turn everything on. Now when I click OK, object, envelope, make with warp. And there we go. I've got my rainbow. I can drag the horizontal right here. Get more of a louder yelling, rainbows forever. Or you could drag the vertical and do some weird stuff like that, but then it twists and you can't read it. So let's put, obviously, vertical back. I kind of like this right here. Just a little bit of emphasis, and it gets smaller as it goes over the hills. And I click OK. That's how you do rainbows in Adobe Illustrator. So if a customer ever asks you for them in the future, you don't have to say no. I will go to File, save my progress as I always do. Space bar for the hand tool, and we have 2 left. Okay, it says select the word below and convert it to outlines, and then ungroup the resulting letters. Then use object menu, transform, and transform each to shake up the word. So I'm going to click right here. I'm going to go to type menu, create outlines. And then I'm going to click on the stroke, and we'll add a black stroke around it. Maybe right up here, we'll make the stroke 2. It's a little thicker so we can see it. Now you go to Object menu, Transform. Wait, I forgot to ungroup my letters. Ungroup them, that is super important. Now I go to Object, Transform, and transform each letter. Right down here, I turn on the preview. Right here, I want every letter to rotate randomly so they're not falling over like dominoes. And right up here, I just crank the angle up a little bit, and every letter will get its own angle. Just pull it down a little bit more, and you get the result that you want. So when you click OK and you click outside, we've got the word earthquake shaken up in an earthquake. Shaken around in an actual earthquake. File menu, save. And now, finally, the end of the road. I hold my space bar from my hand tool and I push this up. This doesn't really look that expressive or dynamic. It's just a single word typed over a photo. Select the word below and use the Effect menu Warp option. Make it look a little more expressive. So I'll click on the type, indicated by my baseline, and now I go to Effect, Warp, Arc, but I don't want it to arc. I want it to bulge, like that. See, if I drag the bend right here, it'll bend out further and further and further, or less and less and less. But I want it to bend out about 65 or so. Kaboom! When you click OK, notice you still have your baseline. So here's the thing you got to watch out for. If you want to turn this into a drawing of this word, you cannot take warped type and go to Type menu, Create Outlines. It will only outline the original word, the original font. So I'll go to Edit and undo that. If you have a baseline and it's warped text, you go to Object menu and you expand the effect right there. Kaboom! I'll click outside, hit Command 0 on my Mac. That'll be Control and 0 on your PC. There's no layers to delete or anything like that. Just go to File and save it one more time. And you have really taken the time to explore typography, all these powerful type editing features here in Adobe Illustrator. Thanks for your patience and thanks for sticking in there. I will see you in the next demo.